Can't hear you.
Sorry, just want to say welcome to everyone on YouTube here checking out the stream. Um, we pray that you're edified by the information that the brother is going to put forth. Of course, through the meat, spit out the bones, and may the Most High guide your understanding, right? All you so-called Negroes and you sincere Gentiles. Um, of course, uh, except for Satan, the so-called white man, who the Most High will destroy. You cannot understand this. I'm sorry. I'm not sorry. Uh, but here goes.
Shalom, Israel, shalom, shalom. Brother Naquam, watchman for Israel, coming back at you with these precepts. And another cold cut, giving, of course, our honor and our glory to Yahweh. Salaki Bashima Masha Kwamalaki Abashai. Double honors. Salaki to the elders of the house of David that's been in this truth for decades and decades, patiently waiting for the second coming of Mashiach Kwamalaki Abashai. A hearty, mighty shalom to all of the mighty men of the Most High God who are out there in the highways and byways, pushing His truth, magnifying ministry, presenting their body as a living sacrifice, and enduring all things for your elect's sake. Shalom, shalom. Shalom to all of the men that may not be out there in the highways and byways as of yet, but they're working on it. They're getting built up in the spirit. They're praying, they're fasting, they're studying, they're being diligent and abounding in the work of the Lord. Shalom, shalom. Shalom to all of the aquat out there, the sincere sisters out there, holding it down in the households, reverencing their husbands, being submissive and diligent, and moving in the spirit of a righteous foremother. Shalom, shalom. And shalom to everybody tuning in live, right? Shalom, Salaki, everybody tuning in live to Puwak, Don Israel, HBK Int, Don Rivers, T. Sellers, Antonio Brayboy, Ancients, New Why Don't We, Solomon McFadden, Brown Girl, Malakia Wasap, Nikia Howard, Ephraimite Ak, Don Israel, Quad Israel 23, Malakia Wasap, Joshua Brewer, Elijah Jones, Divach Branch, Daughter of Zion, Sweet Styles, and everybody else tuning in and that will tune in, Lord willing. We will continue the series, Daniel chapter 11, entire chapter finally explained. And we're going to pick right back up where we left off, leave no stone unturned, and dive into these prophecies. It's like you're up the last days, right? Now we left off. Now this is an ongoing series, right? An ongoing series. So you would have had to watch the previous Daniel 11 just to get caught up in it. In the previous Daniel 11 series, right, Salakia, bear with me. We covered, I believe, the first six verses. We may have touched on the seventh and possibly the eighth, right? So we covered Daniel 11:1 to around, we covered the first six verses, right? And we were going into the seventh. Now, again, if you want a quick recap, the quick recap is you have three kings that stood up in Persia, right? You had Cambyses II, you had Bardiah, you had Darius the First or Darius the Great. Then you had a fourth king that was richer than them all. The fourth king was Xerxes the First. Xerxes the First had an invasion called the Second Persian Invasion of Greece. And he went into Greece to avenge his father, Darius, who was defeated at the Battle of Marathon and other battles by the hand of the Athenians and other smaller Greek city-states. Xerxes the First is the king that you read about or you watch in the movie 300, the rich king. And he himself had another invasion into Greece, and he was defeated by the Athenians, the Spartans, and again other smaller Greek city-states. Out of that, the Greeks began to come into power. Philip II of Macedon, he came into power. Out of him came Alexander the Great, or the Greek, or the Freak. And out of Alexander, his kingdom was divided to four major generals: Lysimachus, Cassander, Seleucus, and Ptolemy. And then it branches off into the two kings, the king of the north and the king of the south. Again, I'm just giving a brief recap of volume 1. And I may do that as we go through each volume. Just give a quick recap of what happened in the previous lesson. So the king of the north is the Ptolemaic Empire and the the Seleucid Empire and the Seleucid dynasty, and the king of the south is the Ptolemaic Empire and or the Ptolemaic dynasty. And that's what 95%, 97% of what this chapter is going into. The king of the south and the king of the north. All right, and we're going to pick right back up where we left off through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bashim Yahushua. Now bear with me. All right, let's pick right back up where we left off. Now this is Daniel chapter 11 and verse 7. Now, if you remember, you had a woman by the name of Laodicea. Laodicea killed Berenice and everybody that was allied with her, right? And even her son. Berenice was the wife of Antiochus II. Antiochus II was persuaded to go back and deal with Laodicea, right? And in turn, she killed off a lot of people. And Berenice is one of the main figures that she killed. And that's what we pick up in Daniel 11 and 7. Daniel 11 and 7. But out of her branch, it's like out of a branch of her roots, shall one stand up in his estate, which shall come with an army, and shall enter into the fortress of the king of the north, and shall deal against them, and shall prevail. Now, the branch out of your roots is your bloodline, right? Your family. That's the similar words for Isaiah the 11th chapter, right? Isaiah chapter 11 and verse 1. And there shall come forth a rod out of the stem of Jesse, and a branch shall grow out of his roots. And that's talking about David. So your branch out of your roots is your family member. Chiefly is the genealogy of your sons. But in Daniel 11, a branch out of her roots is really going into her near kin, right? Her nearest of kin or her family. There was a man that stood up, right? And this man came with an army. Now, the man that stood up is her brother, Euergetes, or Euergetes III. Now, when you look up the Ptolemaic dynasty, right? Let's pull up. Here you have Ptolemy II. He had a daughter, Berenice, right? And then you had Ptolemy III. Ptolemy III is who stood up with a great estate. This individual right here, right? This is also known as, see if we can find this man. I believe I had him pulled up. Euergetes, right? Let's see if I can find this individual. Bear with me. Euergetes. And he's the one that went into Egypt. Ptolemy III. Right? So Ptolemy III is who stood up. And he really stood up to avenge his sister's death. Remember, his sister was killed, man. Murdered. You know? In a gruesome, graphic, horrific death by another woman. Remember, and when you read Daniel 11, it's a lot of drama, man. It's a lot of assassination attempts, killing, murder, rape. This is like an Edomite, the everyday Edomite, man. They make TV shows about this, like I brought out in the previous series, stuff that you see on the ID channel. My killer ex-husband. They got all these creepy shows, man. I killed my wife. You know, cheaters. I took his life insurance. When you get caught, they got all these bugged out shows, and the main people of them shows are Edomites. So you had Laodicea, which was an Edomite. She killed another Edomite, and then that Edomite, Berenice's brother, said, "I'm gonna avenge my sister's death and go and take down the king of the north." Ptolemy the third, Euergetes is his name, right? Now I'm not going to read this whole biography about these men, but I'm going to touch on a few points, right? Ptolemy Euergetes, or Ptolemy the benefactor, was the third pharaoh of the Ptolemaic dynasty. Yeah, he became pharaoh. Now you can say, well, I thought the pharaoh were dark-skinned people. I thought they were the sons of Ham. And but look, these Edomites, they're pharaoh. They're the last samurai. They're Native Americans. Now they're the Jews, right? They're everybody. They're Europeans. They're South Africans. Because they go over and take over lands. And they steal the identity of the people and the titles of those kings, man. Now they're a rabbi. Now they're the chief ruler of a particular tribe. Living somewhere in a reservation as a $5 Indian, man. So a lot of these people, just a quick account, that Jake and Eve, you want to be like the Egyptians, you want to be like that. And a lot of these people are Edomites, man. People talk about, oh, Cleopatra. Cleopatra was an Edomite. Cleopatra isn't a so-called black woman. But you got a lot of, that was a thing. Oh, Cleopatra, she was the queen of Egypt and Nefertiti. And well, Cleopatra is just the title, right? There's many Cleopatras. You got Cleopatra Theos. You got Cleopatra the Seventh with Mark Antony. You got a lot of Cleopatras. You got a lot of Ptolemies, man. So yeah, he was pharaoh because he took on the land of Pharaoh, the land of Egypt. You know, so let's read that. Was the third pharaoh of the Ptolemaic dynasty in Egypt from 246 to 222. The Ptolemaic kingdom reached the height of its military and economic power during the kingship of his initiated Slakia. During his kingship, as initiated by his father Ptolemy II Philadelphus. Ptolemy III was the eldest son of Ptolemy II and Erisno the first. When Ptolemy III was young, his mother was disgraced, and he was removed from the succession. He was restored as heir to the throne in the late 250s BC, and succeeded by his father as king without issue in 246. On his succession, Ptolemy III married Berenice, which was the reigning queen. And here's the point I want. Ptolemy III invaded the Seleucid Empire and won a near total victory, but was forced to abandon the campaign as a result of an uprising in Egypt. So he is the man that you read about in Daniel 11. He's the one that stood up in his estate and came with an army because he wanted to go against the king of the north to avenge what happened to his sister. Because she fell by the hands of the people of the king of the north. You know? It reads, and shall enter into the fortress of the king of the north, and shall deal against them, and shall prevail. So he went up and marched his army into the land of the Seleucids. Now, if you look up, where's the Seleucid Empire? I had to pull it up. Right, let's see if we can get it on the map. I'm gonna have to pull it up again. Put the Seleucid Empire on a map again. Right through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shemi Abashah. Now here's the Seleucid Empire. See if we get it better. Let's see. Right, bear with me. All right, and we pulled this up before. So he came from this area in the gold, and he marched up, and he came into the land of the Seleucids and had a successful military campaign. Remember, the majority of this chapter is about back and forth wars, called the Syrian Wars between the Seleucid Empire and the Ptolemaic Empire, or the Ptolemaic Kingdom, which are two empires that branched out of Alexander the Great. And they're fighting over dominance on who's going to conquer the world all over again, or the known world. And remember those lesser generals, they fade away in time. Antigonus, Lysimachus, right? They fade away in time, as well as Cassander, Perdiccas, right? And then these are your main two major powers. Like today, your main two major powers are Russia and America, right? That's how the Seleucids and the Ptolemies were, right? And they had the Cold War in the 1960s between the Russians and the Soviets and America, and who would increase in the most weapons, and who would have the best army, who would travel to the so-called moon first, who would do this first, and who would build the atomic bomb first. And there was a Cold War and heavy tension, man. And nobody really knew at any given second that World War III could pick off, man, back in the 60s. They didn't know if Russia was going to bomb America. And these Americans would do drills, man. In elementary school, middle school, they would do drills to go to the nearest fallout shelter, and they would do the same thing in Russia. So this is like that back in the ancient world, right? There was constant beef between the Seleucids and the Ptolemies. And it wasn't more so of a Cold War. They was actually fighting, man. You know, and then they had periods of peace, and they had agreements, and they would marry his wife, and he would marry his daughter, and then they would go back to war again. Right? Let's go to the book of Revelation, chapter 6. Let's get a quick precept. This is Revelation chapter 6 and verse 4. And there went out another horse that was red, and power was given to him that sat thereon to take peace from the earth. And that what? And that they should kill one another. And there was given unto him a great sword. See that? Now that's the spirit that's on these Edomites, man. And they have that great sword. The Most High gave them power to take peace from the earth. That's why we read in Maccabees, when the Seleucids came into power, when the Ptolemies came into power, it says evils were multiplied in the earth. And they put the earth at a constant state of war. So the Most High gave them power to take peace away from the earth. That's Esau's deal, man. Right now, even America, there's been, I believe, what, 5 years? Maybe more or less. Maybe off, maybe 5 years. I may be off, 7 years or so. But I believe 95% of even Babylon the Great, since they've been a nation, they've always been at war. They've always been at war since their inception. There's been a brief period of peace, but Esau's always at war. And the point is, and that they should kill one another. So they're going to be killing each other, man. The Ptolemies, the Seleucids, the Ptolemies, man. And there was given unto him a great sword. Right, so they deserve each other. Esau, the Ptolemies, and the Seleucids, they deserve each other. So here's the point, right? Daniel 11:7, Euergetes, he entered into the king of the north's realm and fought against them. Daniel 11:8, and shall also carry captives into Egypt their gods, with their princes and with their precious vessels of silver and gold, and he shall continue more years than the king of the north. Right, now here's the king of the north. The king of the north is Seleucus the second Callinicus, right? He was outlasted by Euergetes. Right, let's pull up Euergetes again. Right, bear with me. He was outlasted. That's why the prophecy says, that's how you can't make this prophecy up. You can't make the word of God. How can somebody predict that one Edomite king is going to live longer than the other Edomite? Right? So the prophecy says that he would carry away captive first into Egypt their gods, with their princes and with their precious vessels of silver and gold. So when he went into Syria, he went into Mesopotamia, he carried away captive the gods, man. That the king of the north took out the first time, and other gods, and brought them back into what? Into Egypt. And I believe I had that account. Right? Let's see. Right? He took the spoils of war. Right? Let's see if I can get that account. The Syrian war. Let's see. This is all right, the third Syrian war from 246 to 241 BC. Right, let's get this. Also known as the Laodicean War, the Third Syrian War began with one of the many succession crises that plagued the Hellenistic states. Antiochus II left two ambitious mothers, his reputed Laodice and Ptolemy's II daughter Berenice in Syria, in a competition to put their respective sons on the throne. Now here's the point. Ptolemy declared war on Laodice's newly crowned son Seleucus. Right? Remember, he rose up to avenge his sister's death. Berenice and her child were killed. He rose up and declared war on Seleucus II. In 246 BC, and campaigned with great success. His forces, possibly being commanded by Xanthippus of Lacedaemon, aka Xanthippus of Carthage, the mercenary general responsible for defeating a Roman army at Tunis and Baghdad in 255 BC. Right? He won major victories over Seleucus in Syria and Anatolia. You see that? Briefly occupied Antioch, and as a recent cuneiform discovery proves, and even reached Babylon. So Ptolemy had a big deal, man. Right? He had a big deal and carried away the gods, which was an ancient war thing. It was an ancient right of war. Even the Philistines, man, when they took Israel captive, remember, they carried away the Ark of the Covenant. Right? Let's go to I believe that's 1 Samuel. 1 Samuel, the 4th chapter. Right? And that what happened in war, man. Right? This 1 Samuel chapter 4 and 21. Here's what Ichabod's mother said. And she named the child Ichabod, saying, the glory is departed from Israel, because the ark of God was taken, and because of her father-in-law and her husband. And she said, the glory is departed from Israel, for the ark of the Most High is taken. Who stole the ark? The Philistines, man. Right? So going to war in the ancient world, yeah, you went to war with the people, but your primary objective also was to take their gods. Now, the Ark of the Covenant wasn't our God. And that's what the Philistines didn't know. That's why the Most High slew them. They thought taking the Ark of the Covenant would take away the strength of Israel. But read what happened in 1 Samuel, the 5th chapter, and you find out that that wasn't the case. But they thought, yeah, we took their God. Now we can finally overcome them. Even the Most High declared war on Pharaoh and the gods of Egypt, man. Right, let's get that in Exodus. That's the 12th chapter. Right, let's get that. This Exodus 12 and verse 12. Right, Exodus chapter 12 and 12. It reads, for I will pass through the land of Egypt this night, and will smite all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, both man and beast, and against all the gods of Egypt I will execute judgment. I am Yahweh. So the Most High declared war, man, on the Pharaoh, the people of Egypt, and the gods of Egypt. The Philistines said, we're going to take the God of Israel captive, which is wicked, man. And they thought it was the Ark of the Covenant. So that's an ancient war tactic. You would take the land, you would take the people, and you would spoil their gods. Let's get one more account of that. Let's go to 2 Chronicles chapter 25. This is 2 Chronicles chapter 25. And I want to get straight to the point with Amaziah. right? Second Chronicles chapter 25 and verse 14. Now I'm gonna start at 13. Well, I'm gonna start at 12. Let's start at 11, right? Because you can't miss 11 and 12. All right, we would be off if we didn't read 11 and 12, right? Second Chronicles chapter 25 and 11. And Amaziah strengthened himself and led forth his people and went to the valley of Salt and smote of the children of Seir 10,000. So we killed 10,000 Edomites. Reading on. And other 10,000 left alive did the children of Israel, Judah, carry away captive. So we put so-called white people in slavery, man. Tens of thousands of them. And brought them to the top of the rock and cast them down from the top of the rock, that they were all broken in pieces. So he threw them off a cliff and their body parts shattered all over the place. But the soldiers of the army, which Amaziah sent back, that they should not go with him to battle, fell upon the cities of Judah from Samaria even unto Beth Horon, and smote 3,000 of them, and took much spoil. Now it came to pass, after that Amaziah was come from the slaughter of the Edomites, that he brought the gods of the children of Seir, and set them up to be his gods, and bowed down himself before them, and burned incense unto them. So that's wicked, huh? To kill a people whose God couldn't save them, then you take their God and worship their God. I mean, how foolish and wicked can you be, man? You killed the people, and the same God that couldn't deliver them, you start to praise that God. Absolute madness. But again, the account and the point of the matter is that's an ancient war tactic. All right. Now, either you would destroy their gods or you would take them captive. We were told to burn the gods of the other nations in Deuteronomy. Burn the altars, burn the groves, burn the graven images with fire, hew down their gods. These are the things that we're going to be told to do in the time to come. And that's the law pursuant to Deuteronomy chapter 7. So that's why Daniel 11, it makes it known that he even carried into Egypt their gods, man. And all of the gold and the silver that was lost. And the prophecy also says, he shall continue more years than the king of the north. So let's look up the longevity of the king of the south and see if he lived more or less years than the king of the north. So here's the king of the south. Philip III Euergetes. He reigned from 246 to 222 BC, right? And he was born 280 BC and died in 222 BC, right? So that's 58 years. Now let's look up the king of the north. This is Seleucus the third or second Callinicus, right? And this man, he died around 40. So one reigned more and lived longer. So you can't make that up. You can't say, no, it's talking about that, it's talking about that. No, right? It's plain upon tables. One king outlived the other king. So Seleucus the second, he falls away now. And now you have Ptolemy the third Euergetes, who came into power. All right. He came into power and he avenged his sister's death. All right. He avenged his sister's death. Now, I want to get a little bit more on him before we moved on. All right. Let's see. All right, let's move on. In Daniel 11. Right? Daniel chapter 11 and verse 9. So the king of the south shall come into his kingdom and shall return into his own land. So he wanted to do more. When you go deep into the history, I mean, he wanted to do more in Egypt. He wanted to take over this land. I mean, more in the Seleucid Empire. But there was a revolt that was going on in Egypt. So he had to go into his kingdom and return to his own land after the victory. And he had to cut the victory short because of the rebellion that was going on in Egypt. Huh? Right. And again, when you go into this account, there's a lot of rebellion and insurrection amongst these kings. there was a massive rebellion in Egypt, I believe chiefly in Alexandria, and he had to go back and quench the fire that was burning in that land. Right, let's go into that. Right, here's that history. Bear with me. Let's see. At this point, actually, let me read this part. In light of this success, he may have been crowned the great king of Asia. So he was moving up, man. He was about to be called the great king of Asia. Early in 245 BC, he established a governor on the land of the other side of the Euphrates, indicating an intention to permanently incorporate the region into the Ptolemaic kingdom. So let's look up their map again. Right? Let's look up the map. It's Ptolemaic. Bear with me. I have to pull it back up again. Right? When you look up the map, we'll just pull it up again. That's all right. Put it up front. Here's your Seleucid Empire. So here's your Ptolemaic Empire, right? He actually reached far as the Euphrates. And it says he took down Babylon. He had a successful victory in Babylon, and he was going to push his kingdom north. Now this map, right, just for record's sake, this is the Seleucid Empire in 281 BC, right? Now when you look up, let's see if we can find a map of Euergetes the third military expansion, right? See, some maps don't give you the real time of when certain events happen, right? They kind of give you the peak of a military success, right? Let me see if I can find that. If they don't have it, that's fine. I'm not going to spend too much time, diving into it. Let's see if this is all right, it's not really going too deep into it. Oh, you see that right there? Right? So this is the extent of the Ptolemaic kingdom in 240 BC. So you got to know which map you're kind of looking at, right? So certain maps are different. Here's Ptolemy the Third. Here's a good map right here. This is what we want. Right, here's a good map. Let me go down. Man, let's see if they got it. Now I gotta make you do all of this looking. Let's see. All right, here you have it, right? Ptolemy the Third invasion during the Laodicean War. And you can see him moving from Pelusium, moving to Seleucia, Antioch, and even to Babylon. So he wasn't playing around, man. When they killed his sister and his nephew, he said, hey, look, I'm not playing no more damn games. I'm marching up north and I'm killing a lot of people. Right? And that's what he did, man. But then he had to fall back. He really couldn't stay there and become the great king of Asia. He couldn't really become the military general that he wanted to be. Remember, the Most High said that he know that the way of man is not in himself. Let's get that in Jeremiah chapter 10. Right? Jeremiah chapter 10 and 23. Oh Lord, I know that the way of man is not in himself. It is not in man that walketh to direct his steps. So it's not up to you to determine how much you're going to conquer, how many people you're going to kill, how far your land boundaries are going to be, how long your rulership of you and your sons are going to be. It is not in man. Everything is done from on high by the hand of Yahweh, by Hashem Yahushua, the God of heaven and earth. So you think that you can go and become the great king of Asia and conquer this entire empire? Hold on, you're going to violate all of the plans of the Most High. The Lord already got this thing worked out, man. That's when the Most High put a rebellion in Egypt. He had to retreat and he had to go back. Right, let's go to the Job 14 and 5. Seeing his days are determined, the number of his months are with thee. Thou hast appointed his bounds that he cannot pass. So your time and your boundaries are ordered by God. Right? How long you're going to live, how far you're going to travel, how far your military conquest is going to reach, how many territories you can put under your belt. All of that is played out by the Most High. And you can't pass the boundary. So the Lord had him stop at Babylon and not go a step forward. Because he would have kept going forward, he would have been a ruler of the known world. And the Lord didn't want that. So you have to appoint his certain boundary and put a rebellion in Egypt. And the Lord could put a spirit of rebellion on the earth. He did that with David's sons, man. The Lord said that the sword shall not depart from your house. Right, let's go to 2 Samuel, chapter 12. 2 Samuel, chapter 12 and 10. Now, therefore, the sword shall never depart from thine house, because thou hast despised me, and hast taken the wife of Uriah the Hittite to be thy wife. So the Most High can have rebellion according to his will, man. Why do you think Absalom rebelled against David? That's part of David's punishment. Why do you think Adonijah did the same thing during the time of Solomon? Why do you think all of these people rebelled against David, man? Because that's prophecy. The sword never departing from his house. And the Most High could send rebellion and evil spirits, man. Judges 9, right? Judges chapter 9 and verse 23. I'm going to start at 22. When Abimelech had reigned 3 years over Israel, then the Most High sent an evil spirit between Abimelech and the men of Shechem, and the men of Shechem dealt treacherously with Abimelech. So the Lord could do that, man. He could put a spirit on men and cause them to fight and beef amongst each other during your reign as king. And that's what you see played out with Solutions. Let's pull that map back up again. Right? So he went, or Ptolemy, or Euphrates, Ptolemy the third, invaded. His boundary was stopped in Babylon, and he had to fall back and go into Egypt. Right? He had to fall back and go into Egypt. Let's see what happened in Egypt. Right? With Ptolemy the third. So, Slakia, let's read this. In early 245 BC, he, meaning Ptolemy III, established a governor of the land on the other side of the Euphrates, right? That's out there in Babylon, indicating an intention to permanently incorporate the region into the Ptolemaic kingdom. At this point, however, Ptolemy III received notice that a revolt, right, a rebellion, had broken out in Egypt, and he was forced to return home to suppress it. By 245 in July 245 BC, the Seleucids had recaptured Mesopotamia. The Egyptian revolt is significant as the first of a series of native Egyptian uprisings that would trouble Egypt for the next century. One reason for the revolt was the heavy tax burdens placed on the people of Egypt by Ptolemy III's war in Syria. So they revolted, man. Anytime you put heavy tax burdens on the people, they revolt. That happened in the time of Yahushua. They say in the days of taxing rose up through this, boasting himself to beat somebody. Right, let's get that in Acts 5. In the days of taxing, there was a rebellion. Yeah, that's what I want. Acts 5. Actually, Judas, Acts 5 or 37. After this man rose up Judas of Galilee in the days of the taxing, and drew away much people after him. He also perished, and all, even as many as obeyed him, were dispersed. So there's always rebellion in the days of taxing, bro. Why do you think they killed Adoram in the time of Solomon? Right? Let's get that. 1 Kings chapter 12. Right? Now he reigned under Solomon and he reigned under David and Rehoboam. 1 Kings 12 and 18. Then King Rehoboam, now that's the son of Solomon, sent Adoram, who was over the tribute. So he was over the taxing. And all Israel, not just some, not just 3 here, 5 there, All Israel stoned him with stones, that he died. Therefore, King Rehoboam made speed to get him up to his chariot to flee to Jerusalem, because all hell was breaking loose. Man, he said, "I got to get what they said, get the hell out of Dodge, man." Right? So that shows you that heavy taxation leads to rebellion and uprising. And there are many accounts in the history of civilization that speaks on that. And that's what happened to Ptolemy III Euergetes when he went to so like when he went to Mesopotamia. That stuff costs money, man. It's not free to go to war. You got to pay your soldiers. You got to pay for food, barracks, lodging, weaponry, right? All types of stuff, man. So you have to put more taxes on the people, the Hamites that was in that land, man. And he said, "The hell with you." So they start rebelling while he was making himself king. So you have to come back and say, "Well, what the hell is going on?" All right, and kind of put it to an end. And while he was doing that, he ended up losing the land that he had. Right. So one reason for this revolt was the heavy tax burdens placed on the people of Egypt by Ptolemy III's war in Syria. Furthermore, papyri records indicate that the inundation of the Nile River failed in 245, resulting in famine. I believe that's a flood. It's supposed to flood over. Yeah, flowing water. That's what that means. So that water usually rises at a set time. It didn't. The Most High shut it down. It led to a famine, right? And you had heavy rains, and it was all hell breaking loose, right? All hell breaking loose. Let's see what else happened. After his return to Egypt and suppression of the revolt, Ptolemy III made an effort to present himself as a victorious king in both Egyptian and Greek cultural context. Official propaganda like August 54, an inscription set up in Adulis, vastly exaggerated Ptolemy III's conquests, claiming even Bactria among his conquests. So they say he went as far as Bactria. That's way east, damn near by Russia. At the new year in 243 BC, Ptolemy III incorporated himself and his wife Berenice II into the Ptolemaic state court to be worshipped as the Theo-Eugartai, meaning the benefactor gods. Right? So they set themselves up to be gods. So we have to go back into Egypt. That's what Daniel 11:9 is saying. Daniel 11:9 again. So the king of the south, that's Ptolemy III Euergetes, shall come into his kingdom and shall return into his own land. Right? So you have to go there and take down the king of the north. Then you have to go back to his own land, quench the rebellion, try to make right the wrongs that he did with the Egyptians and the people of the land, and set up gods and put himself up on a pedestal. So he's trying to work things out down in Egypt. But now something else is going on up north. And let's read about that in verse 10. Daniel 11:10. But his sons shall be stirred up and shall assemble a multitude of great forces, and one shall certainly come and overflow and pass through. Then shall he return and be stirred up even to his fortress. And the king of the south shall be moved with choler and shall come forth and fight with him, even with the king of the north. And he shall set forth a great multitude, and the multitude shall be given into his hand. So what is this talking about? Well, the king of the north, remember, he died, man. So he had two sons. Let's go into his two sons. And out of his two sons, one of them shall certainly come. And the one son that came into power, we'll read about that son. So let's pull up the family tree of the Seleucids again. Right? So Seleucus II had two sons, and they got stirred up, man. After their father fell asleep and passed, let's pull up his father again. Let's go into his death. Right? Let's see. I want to go straight into his death. Right? Bear with me. And his father's Salakia. Bear with me. I want to go into his death. I may have to kind of, right, just go straight into his sons, right? I'm gonna have to go straight into his sons. So this man, he fell away, right? He fell away, he lost his power, and he eventually died, right? He eventually died. Seleucus II Callinicus, right? He eventually died, and he had two sons, and they got stirred up by what happened to their father, man. Remember, their father just got ransacked by Ptolemy III. He got defeated by the king of the north. The king of the south went as far as Babylon, and his sons didn't like that. His sons didn't like that, man. They said, what the hell is going on? His two sons, Seleucus III, Keranos, and Antiochus III the Great. Now, initially, Seleucus III came into power first, right? But after that, the one that came to fulfill prophecy was Antiochus III the Great. So let's go to Seleucus III Keranos first, right? Because these are the sons that we're reading about in Daniel 11. His sons that got stirred up, they got riled up, and they assembled a great forces, man. Right? One of the sons was called the sons, not the sons of thunder, but the thunderer. And I believe that was Seleucus III Keranos, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. So let's go to his sons, right? Seleucus III Serenus, right? Or Seleucus III Soter was the eldest son of Seleucus II and Laodicea. All right, it's not too much said about this man. All right, let's jump down. His birth name was Alexander, and he was named after his great uncle, the Seleucid officer Alexander. Alexander changed his name to Seleucus after he succeeded his father as king. So that's why it says his sons were stirred up because his son came after him, and he went to avenge what happened to his father. This is like gang warfare, huh? So everybody's talking about Jake. Oh, he killed your cousin, so now you got to kill his homeboy. You killed his homeboy's brother. Now his big brother coming to kill you. Then his father stepping in to kill his uncle. Then you killed his uncle, so now his uncle's brother's coming to kill you. That's stuff that happened in the hood, man. Esau does that, man. That's what this is about. Oh, you killed my son, I'm coming to kill you. You killed my brother, I'm coming to kill your cousin. This is niggatry. Edomite niggatry, man. Or really, it's Edomites. And Jake, you learn that behavior from Esau, man. Because that's who's been doing it first. Before crack, before dope, before guns in the hood, right before these black exploitation movies and propaganda, Esau been doing this damn gang warfare. He's the original gangster, man. He's a thug. He's a drug dealer. So they got this tit for tat going on right here, man. All right, so let's read this. Seleucus, after he succeeded his father as king, Seleucus' rule was troubled and unstable. During his tenure, he unsuccessfully continued his father's war in Asia Minor against Attalus I of Pergamum. Seleucus was seen as being energetic and full of ambition like his father. However, he lacked character and was usually very sickly, making him mostly unable to fulfill his ambitious ideas. He, however, in the eyes of many, did not quite suit his position. He was not very well liked by many as he did not fit their definition as a proper king. Right? So he was off, man. Just wasn't that guy. I mean, everybody want to be an athlete. Everybody want to be, a professional basketball player. They want to be somebody, but just not him. You don't have the mentality, the character, the skill, and you can feign yourself. You can put on all of the Under Armour, the Nike this and that, and the headband, and you're just never going to be that guy. Everybody knows somebody like that. especially you brothers that play sports. It was always that one person, man. You have the visor on, playing football, the newest cleats, but he just never really was anybody. That's how this guy was, man. He had these big ideas, big plans, big motives, very ambitious, man. But he wasn't respected. He wasn't liked. You're gonna find out one of his generals killed him. One of his own generals slew him. Let's go to Sirach chapter 10 and 3. Right? And the Lord said, get thee the love of the congregation. Right? Let me get that first. And he didn't have the love of the congregation. Right? Even though he was stirred up, you can be stirred up and still be hated. Man, you can have great intentions like he did to avenge his father's death. But, if the army don't respect you, you ain't going to go too far in the ancient world. Get thyself the love of the congregation and bow thy head to a great man. Let it not grieve thee to bow down thine ear to the poor and give him a friendly answer with meekness. And he didn't have these traits, man. Oppressive, vile, off. You're going to see what happened to this guy. Let's see what happened to him. All right. As he did not fit their definition as a proper king. It's like he did not fit their definition of a proper king, as much as he did try to prove the opposite. After a brief reign of less than 2 years, he was assassinated in Anatolia by members of his army, possibly at the instigation of his powerful minister, Jeremias. Right? And he was a top general. His official name, Soter, means savior, while his nickname, Serenus, means thunderbolt. So he got put to death, man, by his own army. That's why Daniel 11, it says what? His son shall be stirred up. The first son that was stirred up was hated by the army, Seleucus III. And he assembled a great force, man. And he tried to go and do things, but it never really happened. So then you had another son that came. That's what this means. And one shall certainly come. And the one that certainly came, he wasn't iffy. He wasn't hated. He was a mighty Edomite king, man. Antiochus III, a.k.a. they call him Antiochus the Great or the Greek, right? And one shall certainly come and overflow and pass through. Then shall he return and be stirred up even to his fortress. So the one that came into power was Antiochus III. Let's read about that, man. Right? Let's close out of this, man, that man. And let's read about Seleucus III, his son, Antiochus III the Great. Seleucus III brother, right? Antiochus the third, aka the Great, right? Here's Antiochus III the Great, and we'll read about this man. I'm not going to read the whole thing. Let's read. Was a Greek Hellenistic king and the sixth ruler of the Seleucid Empire, reigning from 223 to 187 BC. He ruled over the region of Syria and large parts of the west of Western Asia toward the end of the 3rd century BC, rising to the throne at the age of 18 in April or June 223 BC. His early campaigns against the Ptolemaic kingdom were unsuccessful. But in the following years, Antiochus gained several military victories and substantially expanded the empire's territory. Now, I had a map to show how this man expanded the territory. Right? Now, if you look up, let's see if I had this map right here. So here's a map. I would have it right here. You see that? Here's his empire in the blue. at the time when he came into the throne, right? At the time that he came into the throne. And then you have his empire expanded. Look at all of the purple. It's what he added to the blue. So he wasn't a nobody, man. He wasn't like his sorry brother, right? His brother, a pervert, man. He actually made moves. And he started pushing west, and he started pushing east, and he started pushing south. And this is after all of his wars. That's why it says in Daniel 11, he shall overflow and pass through. Overflow is a term for water, because armies are likened unto water or floods. That's why there's a saying when one army is overcome, they say the tide of the war has turned. Why would they use the word tide? Because tide is something that's water, right? And you may have a low tide, and then the tide may change, and it may overflow the beach or overflow the land. So the tides of this Syrian wars changed. So he overflew like a high tide and passed through. Let's prove that tides or waters are armies and floods. Isaiah 59. Isaiah chapter 59 and 19. So shall they fear the name of Yahweh from the west, and his glory from the rising of the sun. When the enemy shall come in like a flood, the Spirit of the Lord shall lift up a standard against him. So the enemy will come in like a flood and will overflow and pass through. Right? Let's get another precept. Let's get there's a lot. Let's go to Isaiah. Let's just go to Psalm 18. Let's do Isaiah 17. Go to Psalm 18. The enemy likened it to a flood. Psalms chapter 18 and verse 4. The sorrows of death compassed me, and the floods of ungodly men made me afraid. The floods of ungodly men is Esau's army, right? His military force. So this is a future prophecy about being delivered from Jacob's trouble and persecution, right? And the floods of ungodly men right now in this prophecy is the flood of Antiochus III and his army. He's the one that overflew and passed through and expanded his territory like water expands as it takes over. And then he took down and conquered and fought against the king of the south. Now, he didn't win every battle, but you're going to find out he lost a major battle, but he still, expanded the territory. So then shall he return and be stirred up even to his fortress. So he took over the land that his father lost, first and foremost. The land that the Ptolemies had, he took that land first. That's what this means. He overflew and passed through. He took over Babylon and Mesopotamia and all of the lands that his brother tried to take, and all of the lands that was lost by Euergetes III or Ptolemy III. He took that land back even to his fortress. So he conquered Seleucus back, the Seleucid Empire, and took it back. That's why I showed you that map of what the land was, and he kind of expanded initially, took back what was stolen from him. All right. And then he's going to go fight against the king of the south. So he's going to muster up an army to invade Egypt. Right? Let's read about that. And that's called chiefly the Battle of Raphia, if I'm not mistaken. Let's go to the Syrian Wars. The Fourth Syrian War. Right? So now we're in the Fourth Syrian War. So as of now, from Daniel 11:1 on down, we covered the Third Syrian War. Right? We covered the Second Syrian War. We covered the First Syrian War. Now we're on the Fourth Syrian War. And there's two more after that. You got the Fifth Syrian War. You got a Sixth Syrian War. And in the spirit of future prophecy, there's a Seventh Syrian War that's coming. That's going to be in Armageddon. Right? And we'll read about that. And 7 is completion. So this is, we'll read that in time to come. about the future Seventh Syrian War and Cole Sierra between the future king of the south and the king of the north. All right. And that's prophecy. Right now, we're going into prophecy with a slash history, but then we'll kind of jump up in the future. Right. So this is the Fourth Syrian War. Upon taking the Seleucid throne in 223 BC, Antiochus III the Great set himself the task of restoring the lost imperial possessions of Seleucus the First Nicator. So that's what Daniel 11 says when he kind of took over. He overflew and passed over, which extended from the Greco-Bactrian kingdom in the east, the Hellespont in the north, and Syria in the south. By 221 BC, he had reestablished Seleucid control over Media and Persian, which had been in rebellion. And that's the land. Let's pull up that land again. See that? So he took over Bactria and parts of this region. Then he took over parts of Ionia. And now he wants to set his face toward the south. And that's where Daniel 11 and 11 is about to pick up on. Daniel 11 and 11 is about to pick on a battle between the king of the south and the king of the north. Right? Between Ptolemy IV and Antiochus III. And this chief battle is going to be called the Battle of Raphia. We're going to read and see what happened in this battle. This is one of the most ancient battles, most famous battles in the world. You have many battles that mark the transition of power of kingdoms, man. Right? You have many battles, and this is one of them. You have the Battle of Gaugamela, Apis, right? The Battle of Corinth in 146 BC. There are many battles that turn the tides of war, and here's one of them. And this war kind of put Antiochus in his place. Let's read about this. Daniel 11 and 11, and the king of the south, that's Ptolemy the Fourth. Philopator, if I'm not mistaken. Ptolemy the Fourth. I believe he's the Philopator. Let's pull him up. Ptolemy the Fourth. He's the next man up. Let's pull up Ptolemy the Fourth. Yep, Ptolemy the Fourth. Philopator. He's the king of the south in Daniel chapter 11 and 11. And the king of the south shall be moved with choler, and shall come forth and fight with him, even with the king of the north. And he shall set forth a great multitude, but the multitude shall be given into his hand. Right? So the king of the north is going to come with a massive army, and he's going to lose against the king of the south. And that was a gut check for Antiochus III about him coming and thinking that he could just conquer everybody, man. Yeah, you took over your little land. You took over Bactria. You took over parts of Mesopotamia, parts of Asia Minor, but don't think you can just come into the Ptolemies and act like you running stuff, man. And Ptolemy the Fourth said, I'm gonna do what my father did to your daddy, man. And I'm gonna shut your whole damn army down. Now he didn't say it in those words, but you know that, I mean, that's how we break it down, right? Because Ptolemy the Fourth father put Antiochus father in his place, man. He said, I'm gonna do the same thing my father did to your father, and I'm gonna shut this down. Now let's see about this massive army and this massive war between Ptolemy the Fourth and Antiochus III. All right. So here's your Fourth Syrian War. I believe I had it. It's like I got a lot of tabs I got to keep going back to. Right? All right, let's go back to this. Ptolemy the Fourth. Quick insight on Ptolemy the Fourth. Was the fourth pharaoh of Ptolemaic Egypt from 221 to 204 BC. Ptolemy IV was the son of Ptolemy III and Berenice II. His succession to the throne was accompanied by a wide-ranging purge of the Ptolemaic royal family, which left control of the realm's government largely in the hands of its courtiers, Sosibius and Agathocles. His reign was marked by the Fourth Syrian War with the Seleucid Empire. Here's the point, which culminated in a decisive Ptolemaic victory at the Battle of Raphia, one of the largest battles of the whole Hellenistic age. Right? And that's what Daniel 11 is going into, the Battle of Raphia. Daniel 11 and 11 is the Battle of Raphia. Pull up the Battle of Raphia. The Battle of Raphia, and they actually give you the military formation and how the battle happened and how it started. They had war elephants, chariots, horsemen, infantry, archers. This was a big deal, man. The Battle of Raphia, aka the Battle of Gaza, was fought on June 22nd, 217 BC, in modern Rafah, between the forces of Ptolemy IV Philopator, king and pharaoh of Ptolemaic Egypt, and Antiochus III the Great of the Seleucid Empire during the Syrian Wars. It was one of the largest battles of the Hellenistic kingdoms and of the ancient world. Yeah, every scholar knows about the Battle of Raphia, right? If you go to Yale, Harvard, right, Dartmouth, Princeton, and you talk about the Battle of Raphia, they're going to say, "Oh yeah, you're talking about the Syrian Wars," right? It's common knowledge. It was determined by the sovereignty and determined the sovereignty of Kol Sierra. The two largest Hellenistic kingdoms in the 3rd century, Ptolemaic Egypt and the Seleucid Empire, repeatedly fought for control of Syria in a series of wars called the Syrian Wars, right? Let's jump down. In 217 BC, both armies were on campaign through Syria. The Seleucid and Ptolemaic armies met near the small Syrian town of Rafah. Antiochus initially set up his camp at a distance of 10 and then only 5 stadies, right, which are 2 kilometers, right, from his adversaries. The battle began with a series of small skirmishes around the perimeter of each army. One night, Theodotus the Anatolian, formerly an officer of Ptolemy, sneaked inside Ptolemy's camp and reached what he presumed to be the king's tent to assassinate him, but he was absent and the plot failed. So I actually got a video. Let's actually play some of the video to see what went down. All right, let's play some of the video to see what actually happened through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bashim Shah. Right now, I'm not going to play the whole video, right? But let's kind of dive into it through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bashim Shah, right? See if I can find this. All right, here you have it. Right, here's Ptolemaic Egypt. You can watch the whole thing on your own, right? You can watch it on Kings and Generals, Bellum at Historia, and Invictus. There's a lot of history channels on YouTube that give somewhat of a simulated version of what may have happened and how the battle went. Now here's the Battle of Raphia in 217 BC.
It is 217 BC, a century after the death of Alexander the Great. His successors still vie for dominance over the once prosperous empire. Over the past 3 years, the Seleucid king Antiochus III has pushed through Syria. Ptolemy IV has gathered an army of natives in an effort to meet him at Raphia. With the country in crisis, he knows that defeat at Raphia would mean the end of his dynasty in Egypt.
It says if they lost at Raphia, it means that the entire Egyptian dynasty will fall apart. So this was a big deal right here, man.
Ptolemy's army consists of a large and varied force of 6,000 men. However, Ptolemy's Atlas elephants are panicked by the larger Indian breed commanded by Antiochus. They will not bear being close to them in the coming battle. Ptolemy must be victorious at Raphia, or his kingdom will surely fall. Antiochus advances with an army of 7,000 men, consisting mainly of experienced soldiers and heavy piked phalanx infantry. Ptolemy orders his army into a defensive formation, with the pike infantry stationed at the front, the skirmishers at the rear, and the cavalry on each flank. Whomever can win the fight on the flanks will gain a massive advantage, and surely win the battle. Ptolemy hides his heavy chariots way off in the distance to maneuver a flank once both armies have engaged, keeping his elephants at the back as to use them later on in the battle.
Kill them, and I'll buy you all stupid! They want us.
Ptolemy's front line forms a pike phalanx to deter a head-on charge from the Seleucid elephants and cavalry. Antiochus orders his cavalry to charge the right and left flanks of the Egyptian army. Ptolemy orders his cavalry to meet them head-on.
So they pretty much just give you they're giving you a simulation of how the war happened, right, at the Battle of Raphia. And they go into detail, man. This is 14 minutes. If you're into history, a military war, military strategy, tactics, right, battle, right, the ancient world, you know, these are good channels to look into. And it's actually told what happened at the Battle of Raphia. And then when you dive into it and you look at Salaki, let me close that out. Right, bear with me. Pull this back up. When you open up, and I mean, I'm into that stuff through the spirit. Right? I'm into the military campaigns, the wars. Right, you got to kind of know that stuff when you dive into the prophecy. You're not going to be able to break down Daniel 11 and 11 if you don't know history. You don't study war. Right? You have to be able to dive into that and see what happened, who had the war elephants, who had this, so you could be able to, you know, break it down through the spirit and power. How about Shem Yahweh? Right now, is this something that you're going to have to go into in the highways and byways all the time? And more than likely not. But hey, we want to know these things, man, because we covet the prophesy. Now here's let's just dive into this battle and then move on. Right? Let's see, Battle of Raphia. Let's just go into the battle and the aftermath. Right? Ptolemy's victory. So Ptolemy ended up winning the battle. They had war elephants, horsemen. It was a big deal. Ptolemy's victory secured the province of Kole, Syria, for Egypt, but it was only a respite. At the Battle of Panium in 200 BC, Antiochus defeated the army of Ptolemy's son, Ptolemy V, and recaptured Kole, Syria, and Judea. Right? So Daniel 11 is speaking about how the Ptolemies defeated the Seleucids at the Battle of Raphia around 218 BC. Now we're in Daniel 11 and 12. Daniel 11 and 12. And when he hath taken away the multitude, meaning when Ptolemy the fourth Philopator defeated Antiochus the third the Great, what will happen to Ptolemy? His heart shall be lifted up, and he shall cast down many 10,000s, but he shall not be strengthened by it. Now, when he defeated them, he got proud, man. He started feeling himself. And this guy, Ptolemy the fourth, what's the word I'm looking for? He was a party guy, man. He liked to have a good time. And this guy was also a sodomite. He was a freak. He was into a lot of freakism stuff, man. Right? He was into a lot of like lewd, lustful things, man. So when he defeated him, he started acting as if he was untouchable. And that pride came in. And you're going to find out when the Most High said that he shall not be strengthened by it. That means even though he won that victory against Antiochus III the Great at one of the greatest battles ever, his kingdom was still falling. It's like it was still falling apart. It was still not stable, man. Still had civil war, tension, people killing each other, madness going on, seditions, riots. So you could win a victory externally, but then internally, your kingdom could be collapsing, man. Right? You could still be falling apart. Now let's kind of go into this. His heart shall be lifted up, and he shall cast down many 10,000s. Right? So let's go into Ptolemy IV, Philopator. All right, Ptolemy IV, Philopator. Let's see. Let's dive into this man. And this guy was, like I said, he was into some stuff, man. He was into some stuff when you dive into it. I believe he married his family, man. Let's read about this guy. He had a catamite. He had a little boy lover. I believe this is one of his boy lovers, man. Agatholocles. That was his boy lover. He had a boy lover. He had they call him catamites. He was a catamite. He had a boy lover he would pop and deal with. He had he married his sister. He killed a lot of his family. He was off, man. Even other Edomites call this guy wicked. I mean, look at him. Right? So let's go into this guy. I'm not going to read this whole life story, but there's something we want to kind of dive into. All right, and there's so much, but I want to get straight to the point. Sometime between, let me get straight to the point. Bear with me. Ptolemy IV's uncle Lysimachus was probably murdered at this time. His mother Berenice II was believed to support his younger brother Magus, who had held substantially military commands and was popular in the army. So Magus was scalded to death in his bath. So this guy was killing people, man. Berenice II died shortly afterward. She was said to be poisoned. And word is out, or legend goes, that he killed his brother and he killed his mother. By contrast, Ptolemy IV's older sister, Arsinoe III, was brought into close association with the king. They had married in 220 BC, so he started dealing with his sister, man. Killed his brother, married his sister, murdered his mother. So this was something that the Ptolemies did. They would marry, and it was heavy into incest, right? Heavy into incest. Let's get the law. Leviticus 18. Wickedness. Leviticus chapter 18 and verse 6. None of you shall approach to any that is near of kin to him to uncover their nakedness. Verse 9. The nakedness of thy sister, the daughter of thy father, or the daughter of thy mother, whether she be born at home or born abroad. Even their nakedness thou shalt not uncover. So you can't be dealing with your sister, man, or your mother. That's lewd and vile, but it's common amongst the Edomites, common amongst the English and the British crown and their royalty, common amongst the dukes of Edom, and common amongst the Ptolemies, man. The same people. All right? Common amongst the Ptolemies. All right, let's jump to this guy, man. I want to kind of read about a little his lewdness. Bear with me. There's something in here I want to get into. Okay, check this out. Here's what we want. Ptolemy IV also strongly emphasized the cult of Dionysus. You know what? So he was into this god Dionysus or Bacchus. You know what Bacchus was the so-called god of? Of ecstasy, orgies, drunkenness, revelry, right? Madness. And he was the god of folly, man. And lust and entertainment. And that was Ptolemy the Fourth, his favorite god, for lack of better terms. So Dionysus is the god of winemaking, orchards, fruit, vegetation, fertility. So he's the god of sex, festivity, insanity, ritual madness, religious ecstasy, and theater, right? So he's into all types of madness, man. He's into all types of madness, Bacchus and lust. So Ptolemy the Fourth, he was into this guy. He was into that god. That was his inner spirit, and linked the god closely to the dynastic cult. Dionysus was the Greek god of wine and closely associated with the royal idea of opulence and luxury, known in Greek as trophy. Ptolemy the Fourth wished to cultivate. Several new festivals of Dionysus were inaugurated, in which Ptolemy the Fourth himself led the processions. So he was freaking off. He had makeup on, half naked, marching through. This guy was off, man. He's supposed to be a king, beating on a tymphanon, right? Like a tambourine. He renamed several areas of Alexandria in honor of Dionysus and his attributes. Sometime before 217 BC, Ptolemy IV ordered all priests of Dionysus to come to Alexandria to be registered and to submit their holy books and mystery rites to government inspection. Right? So he was into all types of occultic and wickedness, man. Occultic behavior and wickedness. And you can read more about this guy on your own. Right? Now check this out. Here's one more about this guy. It reads, see if I can find it. He had a, oh, here it is, right here, right? He had a pleasure boat. It reads, Ptolemy the Fourth is said to have built a giant ship known as Tessera Canteris, for he rowed a huge galley and possibly the largest human-powered vessel ever built. He didn't build, and this had 4,000 oarsmen, guys in the bottom of the ship, 4,000, saying, row, row. You know what this boat was for? This boat served as a pleasure boat, not a military vessel. So what the hell is a pleasure boat, man? Right? So this guy had a pleasure boat. He was into freakism, insanity, lust, madness. And a lot of that, man, you know, the people didn't really get with it. The people didn't get with it. He was too into having a good time, and it brought about major holes in his kingdom. Let's read about that. The main surviving account of Ptolemy IV's life is the characters provided by the historian Polybius. He presents, check this out. He presents Ptolemy IV as the typal bad king, entirely focused on luxury and court ceremony, and completely neglecting the politics, foreign affairs, and military pursuits. So his kingdom got weak, man. His kingdom was weak. And he slew 10,000 of the king of the north, and he killed a lot of our fathers, man, and foremothers and forefathers. That's another part of this Daniel 11 when it says he shall cast down many 10,000. And that's not just talking about Antiochus III the Great and his army. That's also talking about what he did to the Jews. You're going to find out that this freak, I want to use another word, but I'm going to hold my tongue. This sodomite, this lustful wickedness wizard, also stomped down and killed a lot of the Jews, man, that lived out there in that time, right? That's why even though he defeated them in his great battle, Raphia, he had a lot of madness going on. But he had a lot of skeletons in the closet, for lack of better terms. And it's ultimately going to lead to his demise, man. Now let's go to this. Let's go into what he did to the Jews. Ptolemy IV is a major character in the Deuterocanonical book 3rd Maccabees, which we don't ascribe to, but it's still history, right? Which was probably written in the 1st century AD. And this work set after the Battle of Raphia. The king is presented as an oppressive tyrant, which he was, who transgresses divine law by trying to enter into the temple at Jerusalem. And he tried to go, and then the people to Israel told him, no, you can only be out here in this part. When you go into this, go into that history, man. Remember, I'm just touching the surface on a lot of Daniel 11. All right, but you got to dive deeper into the history. And then they told him, look, just go on the outside. He said, no, I want to go on the inside. And the Lord jammed him up. And you can see what the Most High did to him. Damn near the same thing he did to Heliodorus. Right? Read what happened to Heliodorus. So he tried to enter into the temple and launches an attempt to wipe out the Jews by gathering them all in the hippodrome at Alexandria and having them trampled by drunken elephants. Right? But the Most High intervened. So he came down and he slew a lot of Jews, man, and wanted to do more. I mean, what type of person thinks about that? Let's get an elephant drunk, put him in a theater, and have him trample people. Only an Edomite would think of that stuff, man. Only a devil. Only a heart that would devise wicked imaginations. In Proverbs chapter 6. He is the epitome of Proverbs chapter 6 and 16. These six things doth Yahweh hate. Yea, 7 are an abomination unto him. A proud look, and Ptolemy the fourth Philopator was proud as hell. Made himself a god, made his wife a god or his sister a god, said y'all have to worship us, had a pleasure boat, had a catamite, an effeminate boy that he would just pop from time to time, try to go into the temple. Who do you think you are, man? So he was proud and a lying tongue, hands that shed innocent blood. So he slew Israel too, and heart that deviseth wicked imaginations. Yeah, let's take many Israelites, put them in an amphitheater, get the elephants drunk. Who wants to get an elephant drunk? Who even thinks about that? Only an Edomite would, man. You want to get a massive beast drunk and have them trample God's people after you tried to go into the temple. Feet that be swift to and run into mischief, a false witness that speaketh lies, and hands that shed slakia, and he that soweth discord among brethren. So this guy was proud, man. So Daniel 11 and 12, it reads that when he hath taken away the multitude, meaning he defeated Antiochus at the battle of Raphia, his heart shall be lifted up. Yeah, pleasure boats, lewd sex, lust, occultic behavior, theaters and fancy wickedness and murder and adultery and scandals and lust and pride, man. His heart got lifted up. And he shall cast down many 10,000, not just the army, but also the Jews. But he shall not be strengthened by it, because he neglected the chief principles to maintain the kingdom. So even though he won these battles, his kingdom was still weak, man. He neglected foreign policy, the people's well-being, the battles of war, right? Legislation, the fundamentals that any king should do. And here's what happened in verse 13. Daniel 11 and 13. But a king of the north shall return, and shall set forth a multitude greater than the former, and shall certainly come after certain years with a great army and with much riches. So while he's wallowing in his lust, Antiochus III, he's still stirred up. He looking for get back, payback. He underestimated him at first. It came with 7,000 soldiers and this many elephants, but he's coming back with a massive army. And he actually, when you read
All right, Dad, I'm gonna go now.
history, he actually linked up with a lot of other Edomites and made allies with people in Macedon or Thrace and other parts of the earth, and put a massive army together, a massive army to go back and fight against Ptolemy. Right? So let's read about this in the history. Daniel 11 and 13, the king of the north returning with a massive army. Let's go back into Antiochus III, right? Or Antiochus the Great. Let's dive into this. All right. Let's see. Antiochus. Let's see where I want to jump down. All right. From Seleucia on the Tigris, he led an expedition down the Persian Gulf against the Gerasenes of the Arabian coast. Antiochus seemed to have restored the Seleucid Empire in the east, right? We covered that already, which earned him the title of the Great. And 205 to 204 BC, the infant Ptolemy V, Epiphanes, succeeded the throne in Egypt. And Antiochus is said, notably by Polybius, to have conducted or concluded a secret pact with Philip V of Macedon, that's another Edomite, for partition of Ptolemaic possessions. Under the terms of the pact, Macedon was to receive Ptolemaic possessions around the Aegean Sea and Cyrene, while Antiochus would annex Cyprus and Egypt. Once more, Antiochus attacked the Ptolemaic province of Syria and Phoenicia. So he came back with a massive army, and he had help, right? He had help from who? From other Edomite kings to help him take down the throne, right? To help him take down the throne from the king of the north, all right? And by 199 BC, he seems to have had possession of it before the Aetolian leader Scopas recovered it from Ptolemy. But that recovery proved brief. Right? Check this out. For in 198 BC, Antiochus defeated Scopas at the Battle of Panium near the sources of the Jordan, a battle which marks the end of Ptolemaic rule in Judea. So the Battle of Panium links directly up with what? Daniel chapter 11 and verse 13. So he returned and he linked up with the king of Macedon and other kings, and he built the massive army together to actually avenge what happened to him at the Battle of Raphia. He couldn't just let that Battle of Raphia just act like it never happened, right? So he said, look, I'm gonna take my time while his kingdom is falling apart. Ptolemy the Fourth, right? I'm gonna take advantage by building up an army. And while he was building up an army, Ptolemy the Fourth actually died. That wicked, lustful king, he actually died, man. Right? Ptolemy the Fourth died, and his son, Ptolemy the Fifth, came on the scene. Now, Ptolemy the Fifth was just a young man, young child, right? And he didn't know what was going on, and they took advantage of it. They took advantage of him not knowing what was going on. All right? They took advantage of him. Now, let's jump down. Let's get his son. Right? Let's get his son Ptolemy V. So he came into power. He was, as a king, man, a young king. So you have to have people that kind of ruled over him and looked out for him. Ptolemy V Epiphanes, Eucharistos, meaning Ptolemy the Manifest or the Beneficent, was the king of Ptolemaic Egypt from July or August 204 BC till his death in 180 BC. All right? Until his death in 180 BC. And, when you're coming into power as a young king, you can't really call the shots. So you have to have something called a regent. And we covered that in the first series. A regent is a de facto king. So when you're a young boy, you have to have a regent to rule over you. You can see that even in Israel, man. When you have Jehediah, which was the priest, right? And he's the one that actually ruled when the young king of Judah was just a young boy or a young man. That's in the scriptures, man. Right? Let me see if I can get that account in 2 Kings. Spell his name correctly. Let's go to. Let's see. I gotta find this account. The 2 Kings, chapter 11, and let's start at 1. Or I'll start at 4. I'll start at 3. 2 Kings chapter 11 and 3. Actually, I'm gonna start at verse. Boy, this whole thing is good, man. 11 and 2. I'll start at 3. And he was hid in the house of the Lord 6 years, and Athaliah did reign over the land. So Athaliah was a wicked queen, and she was the regent when the young king couldn't reign. Right? When Joash was the king, and Joash, he was too young to make decisions. He was too young to tell Israel what to do, to lead the army into war. So they had to have a regent set up. And Athaliah, a wicked Eve, took it upon herself to kill everybody and set herself up. But the true regent that was working behind the scenes was a Levite, a priest named Jehediah, who actually was calling the shots and setting the king up until the king came into power. Right? Let's read about that. 2 Kings chapter 11 and 4. And the 7th year, Jehoiada sent and fetched the rulers of hundreds with the captains and the guard, and brought them to him into the house of Yahweh, and made a covenant with them, and took an oath of them in the house of Yahweh, and showed them the king's son. And he commanded them, saying, this is the thing that ye shall do. A third part of you that enter in on a Sabbath shall even be keepers of the watch of the king's house. And a third part shall be at the gate of Sir, and a third part at the gate behind the guard. So shall ye keep the watch of the house, that it be not broken down. You see that? And 2 parts of all you that go forth on the Sabbath, even they shall keep the watch of the house of. So I can keep watch of the house of Yahweh about the king. Here's the point. And ye shall compass the king round about, every man with his weapons in his hand. And he that cometh within the ranges, let him be slain. If you come close to the king, put him to death. And be ye with the king as he goeth out and as he cometh in. You're the king's personal bodyguard. Joash, he's too young. So Jehediah or Jehoiada, he was the regent at that time. So that's a similar practice in monarchies and kingdoms. And the same thing was in Ptolemy V's rulership. Ptolemy V was too young. So his father's boy lover, the Catamite, actually was the regent. And he was calling the shots until Ptolemy V came into the scene. Let's read about that. Ptolemy V, the son of Ptolemy IV, and Arisno III, inherited the throne at the age of 5 when his parents died in suspicious circumstances, meaning they were killed. The new regent, Agatholocles, remember that's his boy lover, his father's boyfriend. All right? That's wicked, man. Your father's boyfriend is calling the shots and raising you while you're supposed to be king. Right? That's who Agatholocles was, man. Yeah, they say minister and, oh, they were just very close. No, they wasn't just very close. That was his boyfriend, his lover. Agatholocles, man. So he was the new regent. Was widely reviled because he was associated with his father and was toppled by a revolution in 202 BC. But the series of regents who followed proved incompetent and the kingdom was paralyzed. That's why his kingdom wasn't strengthened. The Seleucid king Antiochus III and the Antigonid king Philip V took advantage of the kingdom's weakness to begin the Fifth Syrian War, in which the Ptolemies lost all their territories in Asia Minor and the Levant, when they lost all of Judea and Israel, as well as most of their influence in the Aegean Sea. Simultaneously, Ptolemy V faced a widespread Egyptian revolt led by the self-proclaimed pharaohs Horwinifer and Ankh-Winnefer, which resulted in the loss of most of Upper Egypt and parts of Lower Egypt as well. And this began a downfall and a demise of the Ptolemaic Empire. Now, they used to be the chief one in power, but they became weaker and weaker and weaker. And that really happened around the time of the Fifth Syrian War. That's why Daniel 11 says he's going to come with a great army, right? Because he had that league with the Antigonid dynasty to take them down. And that battle, let's pull that up, was the chief battle, the Battle of Panium. So the Battle of Panium was fought in 200 BC near Panias between the Seleucid and Ptolemaic forces as part of the Fifth Syrian War. So now we're in the Fifth Syrian War. The Seleucids were led by Antiochus III the Great, while the Ptolemaic army was led by Scopas of Anatolia. So he was the general, while the young king was in power. The Seleucids achieved a complete victory, annihilating the Ptolemaic army and conquering the province of Cold Syria, right? That's that Levant region. Syria, Lebanon, northern part of Israel. The Ptolemaic kingdom never recovered from its defeat at Panium and ceased to be an independent great power. So that was it, man. First, you had the Battle of Raphia, and you thought that would have wiped out the Seleucids, but they came back into power, right? And he said, no, we're going to fight back, and we're going to make a league when you're young, when the king is young, and massive an army to fight against them. Antiochus secured his southern flank and began to concentrate on the looming conflict with the Romans, or the Roman Republic, and we'll dive into that as well, right? So here's let's see his empire again. Antiochus III. Here's his empire when he came on the scene. Look how small it was. And let's see his empire after the Battle of Panium, and after he defeated Ptolemy V. Now look at his empire. Now he has Syria and all of so-called Palestina, or the land of Israel, and other parts. So that's why they call him Antiochus Magnus, or Megas, aka Antiochus the Great. Let's jump down to Daniel 11. Daniel 11 and 14. And in those times, there shall many stand up It's like, there shall many stand up against the king of the south. Also, the robbers of thy people shall exalt themselves to establish the vision, but they shall not fall. Yeah, this isn't talking about the Amalekites. Yeah, we know they're robbers, but it's speaking about the robbers of thy people. The angel is talking to Daniel. Daniel, telling Daniel, you're going to have your own people that's going to do things, but they're going to fall. They're going to exalt themselves. So what this is saying is, when Ptolemy V was in power, many people tried to take over. We just read that 2 people tried to make themselves king, man. Right, let's pull that back up. Where is this at? Ptolemy V. Right, you had widespread revolt. Ptolemy V faced a widespread Egyptian revolt led by the self-proclaimed pharaohs Horwinifer and Akhwinifer. And you had many people, not even just those guys, man. Right? Not just those guys. You had many guys that stood up against the king of the south. You had Antigonus of Macedon. You had Antiochus III. You had these 2 men. You had other men that wanted his life. Many people tried to kill him, man. People in his court, they tried to poison him, take his life. Right? Let's kind of read about that. Let's see. Ptolemy V began maneuvering for renewed warfare with the Seleucid Empire, but these plans were cut short by his sudden death in 180 BC. Check this out. Allegedly poisoned by courtiers worried about the cost of war. So he had people that wanted to poison him, and they did poison him, and they killed him. His own generals, his own men, people that wanted to make themselves pharaoh, his own armies from Thrace and Macedon and Babylon and Seleucia. That's what Daniel 11 is saying. And in those times, there shall many stand up against the king of the south. He had many enemies, man. Many enemies. And while that was going on, there was a fight amongst the Jews. A lot of the Jews, they didn't know what to do. Do we link up with the king of the south and stay there, even though the kingdom is falling apart? Or do we kind of, pledge our allegiance to, for lack of better terms, to the king of the north? So they exalted themselves, and guess who else? Guess who else fought against Ptolemy V? A lot of the Jews. That's what they call it, the robbers of thy people. When you look this up, it's not just saying they're actual thieves. You got to go into the Hebrew, go into the terminology. It's really saying the sons of the wicked or the sons of Israel, right? See if I can get that in another translation. Right, let's see if I can get that. Right, Bible Hub. Let's put it Daniel 11:14. So we had a lot of the Jews that wanted to fight too against Ptolemy V, and they linked up with Seleucus or Antiochus. And I'm gonna go into that as well. This is Daniel 11:14. Right, Daniel chapter 11, and I want verse, right, bear with me, 14. See if we get another translation. Right, just for edification's sake. See that? NLT. At that time, see, in the KJV, it says the robbers of thy people, right? NLT, at that time, there will be a general uprising against the king of the south. Violent men among your own people. That's why it says thy people. Right? Now, if you want to say, well, that's Amalek, they're the robbers. Yeah, they're robbers, but don't take the verse, don't take the context out of the verse, right? And make it something that is not, because you're going to break the whole prophecy is going to be shattered if you break it down wrong. All right. So it's really talking about the violent men amongst the Jews who joined them because they actually linked up and they fought against the king of the south, and they linked up with the king of the north in fulfillment of this vision, but they will not succeed. So they helped fulfill the vision and the prophecy of the uprising of the king of the south. They helped add to it, to the uprising against Ptolemy V, ESV. And those times, many shall rise against the king of the south, and the violent among your own people shall lift themselves up in order to fulfill the vision. Yeah, the vision is the vision that the angel is giving Daniel, chiefly about the uprising against Ptolemy V. But they shall fail, right? But they shall fail. So check this out. Let me go into this quick history. Now, this is from Amazing Bible Timeline, right? Let's jump. Let's see this. Bear with me. The Septuagint, Slovakia. The Septuagint was created, and this is the Greek version of the Tanakh. The Old Testament was also translated into Greek at a later time. In a later time, the New Testament writers of the Christian scriptures also used Greek to write down their text around 100 AD. The Septuagint was written during the era of the Ptolemaic rulers, and that was chiefly done by Philadelphus II, if I'm not mistaken. Check this out. Even though most Ptolemaic rulers, Slovakia, even though most Ptolemaic rulers didn't care for the Israelites, now it says Jewish people, but Israelites, unfortunately, there were some that did, but in the wrong kind of way. Ptolemy IV and Ptolemy V both hated the Jews. They persecuted the Jews for about 40 years during their reigns, and they desecrated their temple. The Israelites were extremely happy when Ptolemy IV died. So they, in our life during this time, we were being persecuted, man. It was massive hell going on. That's why you had a lot of Jews, which the Bible and the KJV calls the robbers of thy people. They exalted themselves too. They said, man, the hell with you, O king of the south. All you did was persecute us, rob us, try to get us trampled by elephants, kill us. You went into the temple. You're a blasphemer and a rapist and a robber. So let's see what happened. The Ptolemies and the Seleucids fought against each other over territory, and the Israelite people were caught up in the struggle. They wanted the ongoing conflict to end because many Israelites were being caught in the crossfire. The Israelites were finally rid of the Ptolemies after the Seleucids took over, but they didn't fare much better under rule. So they kind of exalted themselves to help take down the Ptolemies. And there's more in the Josephus. Here's the Josephus, right? Chapter 1. Now check this out. I'm not going to read this whole thing, but there's a point I want to get. Bear with me. And you can read this whole thing on your own. All right, let's see. And as he knew that the people of Jerusalem were most faithful in the observation of oaths and covenants, and from the answer they made to Alexander, when he sent an ambassage to them after he had beaten Darius in battle. So he distributed many of them into garrisons, and at Alexandria gave them equal privileges of citizens with the Macedonians themselves, and required of them to take their oaths, and that they would keep their fidelity to the posterity of those who committed these places to their care. So Alexander let the Jews do their thing. Antiochus, he let us do our thing too. Antiochus III, he resettled us, put us back in the different cities, took us out of Egypt, and made us and built the cities, man. So the Most High put a spirit on Antiochus III to treat us well. And we like that, man. The Jews like that, right? They kind of had peace for a little while. Check this out. Nay, they were not a few other Jews who of their own accord went into Egypt, as invited by the goodness of the soil and by the liberality of Ptolemy. However, there were disorders among their posterity with relations to the Samaritans on account of their resolution to preserve that conduct of life which was delivered to them by their forefathers, right? So you had a lot of Jews that was caught up in between the Ptolemies and the Seleucids, right? So the Jews exalted themselves, and they actually had a league. When you go into it, they had a league with who? With the king of the north. That's what this means. Also, the robbers of thy people, right, shall exalt themselves to establish division, but they shall fall, right? And they ended up falling because the king of the north came, right? That's what verse 15. So the king of the north shall come and cast them out and take the most fenced cities, and the arms of the south shall not stand. Now there's chosen people, now there shouldn't be any strength to withstand, right? We'll cover that on the next series. So you had Israelites that was caught up in between, and they want to help take down the Ptolemies. Some of them want to help take down the Seleucids, but they weren't being treated well by Ptolemy the fourth and Ptolemy the fifth. So they exalted themselves to go against the king of the south, but it didn't plan out the way they wanted to plan out, because they started getting oppressed too by the king of the north's sons that we'll read about later in this chapter. All right, so that's Daniel chapter 11, volume 2. We covered verses 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14. Right, Lord willing, in the next series we'll cover 15 on down, right? So this has been Daniel chapter 11, the entire chapter, finally explained, volume 2. Volume 2, again, there's a lot of slander, a lot of backbiting, violence amongst these Edomites, treachery amongst them, killing, wars, bloodshed, deceit, incest, rape, plundering, pillaging, and the Most High is exposing how these Edomites really are, man. Daniel 11 speaks about the wickedness of Esau towards each other and what they did on the earth, man. That's what the Lord said, evils shall be multiplied in the earth, and we're covering these evils. So with that, we're going to close up, giving, of course, our honor and glory to Yahweh. Most High willing you are edified. Kwam Yasha. Shalom.
And he was brought to a different location. And at some point after that, he died. Let's prove it. This is John 6:38. And this is Yahweh Shai talking. It says, "For I came down from heaven, not to do my own will, but the will of him that sent me." So we see here that Yahweh Shai said that he came down from heaven. And we know that he's talking about the heaven where the Most High is. Now, let's go to John 3:13. It says, "And no man have ascended up to heaven, but he that came down from heaven." Now we just read in John 6:38 that Yahweh Shai said that he came down from heaven. It says, "Even the Son of Man, which is in heaven." So Yahweh Shai made it clear that no man ascended up to heaven where the Most High is except for him. What does he mean? He's talking about in bodily form. Yahweh Shai is the only person who ascended up into heaven in bodily form. When he rose from the dead, he ascended into heaven in bodily form. Yahweh Shai said he's the only one who did that. So that means that Enoch and Elijah did not ascend up to heaven in bodily form.
Shalom, everybody. Shalom. Give me a second here. Yes, yes, yes. I do apologize. I was actually downstairs watching the video with my family, and we were 11 minutes behind. As I saw the brother concluding downstairs, I was like, wait, hold on. Let me go see what's going on with the video upstairs. And I realized that it had already finished for about 11 minutes. So I do apologize there. What do you guys think of the video? Oh, before we get into that, thanks to everybody online who tuned in. I pray that the video was edifying for you. And of course, the whole point of learning this stuff, especially you Negroes, who are God's chosen people, is for you to return to the law, statutes, and commandments of the Most High. So if you're interested in doing that, of course, connect with us or any local sincere Israelites around you, and let them help you to keep the law, statutes, and commandments of the Most High. And when you do that, always keep your eyes open and stay diligent, for there are many false prophets that have gone out into the world, and indeed many false prophets that have gone out into Israel as well. So thank you guys for joining us. Stay connected with us. If you want to hear the word in spirit and truth, and the people that are on the line, just wait a second. Let me stop the live here. Okay, shalom.